Buenos días. En nombre de la Fundación Wiese, les damos la bienvenida al quinto día del sexto Coloquio Internacional de Arqueología, el Patrimonio Cultural y el COVID-19. Desafíos, oportunidades y aprendizajes. El día de hoy compartiremos con ustedes la presentación Colecciones en línea, herramientas para la gestión virtual de colecciones. Esta presentación explorará algunas de las diversas formas de presentar colecciones y bienes culturales en línea. Esta presentación de Collections Trust compartirá ejemplos de diferentes enfoques para inspirar a los curadores y diseñadores de exposiciones. Los recursos digitales compartidos han sido seleccionados considerando su gratuidad y accesibilidad en costos e infraestructura técnica. Collections Trust es una organización del Reino Unido que colabora con el British Council en el International Museum Academy alrededor del mundo, trabajando con museos para generar y compartir información que le da significado a sus bienes inmuebles. Sus estándares y consejos son usados alrededor del mundo para incrementar la accesibilidad de las colecciones. Nuestro ponente, Kevin Gosling, comenzó su carrera en el museo estudiando inscripciones rúnicas medievales en Oslo a fines de la década de 1980. Luego trabajó en una exposición de arqueología galardonada para el Museo de Londres. Dirigió la oficina en el Reino Unido para la planificación de museos Lord Cultural Resources y fue director de comunicaciones para la celebración mundial del centenario del compositor Benjamin Britten en 2013. Ha sido director ejecutivo de Collections Trust desde 2015, habiendo regresado unos 20 años después de ayudar a lanzar su gestión de colecciones Spectrum a mediados de la década de 1990. Los dejo con Kevin. Gracias.
Hello, I'm Kevin Gosling, Chief Executive of Collections Trust. I met some of you at the colloquium last year, those amazing few days we had in Trujillo, at El Brujo and Magdalena de Cao. So to you, hello again. And to those of you who don't know me or Collections Trust, we're a small not-for-profit organisation. We're based in the UK, but we work internationally. And our mission is to help museums capture and share the information that gives their objects meaning. We're best known for the collections management standard Spectrum, a guide to all the different procedures museums need in order to work effectively with their collections. It's used by all the museums in the UK and in many other countries as well. I'm delighted to say that following on from my trip to Peru last year, the British Council has commissioned a translation of the whole of Spectrum into Spanish. We're just putting the final touches to the formatting of this, and it'll be available for free on our website later this autumn. But what I've been asked to talk about today is how museums can respond to the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, and the post-lockdown, when they can't engage with their audiences in the way they normally would, through on-site visits. Although some museums are beginning to open up again, many are not. Many, indeed, have decided to write off the whole year and not open at all in 2020. Those that have opened will only see a small fraction of their usual visitor numbers. Unfortunately, it looks as though this situation will persist around the world for many months to come. So, for the foreseeable future, the main route to engaging with existing audiences, let alone building new ones, will be via online content. And that's going to be a challenge for many museums, especially smaller ones. We've had a lot of inquiries at Collections Trust about how to create digital content on a budget. And what I want to do here is pass on some of the advice we've been giving. The best bit of advice I can give is not to get too distracted by the word digital. You already know how to put on exhibitions in your museum, how to interpret your collections for school children. So don't forget what you already know about how to do things in the physical world. At Collections Trust, we like to say digital isn't different. And it's true. The key to great digital storytelling is great storytelling. So, just as you would for any other interpretation project, figure out what stories you want to tell and who you want to tell them to. Then, and only then start thinking about the various options for doing that digitally. From conversations I've had over recent months with people new to creating digital content, perhaps the biggest hurdle they've faced is the misconception that this means putting their entire collection catalogue online. That's not a bad ambition in itself, but if your priority is to keep engaged with people in your local community who can't visit in person, an online research database is not the solution to that immediate problem. Far better to do some fun and quirky things on social media, like this. You don't need expensive kit to do something like this, just a phone and a simple video editing app. That video was made by Hatworks, which, as the name suggests, is a museum about the history of hat making. It's run by Stockport Metropolitan Borough Council, and this is the museum's landing page on that very boring corporate local government website. As you can see, there are very limited opportunities for the museum to create engaging digital content within the constraints of that website. So the curators have made a virtue out of necessity and built up their online presence in other ways, using free social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Meanwhile, over at Manchester Museum, the curators who look after the reptiles and amphibians in the vivarium have been using the live streaming platform Periscope to broadcast a weekly session under the heading Frog Friday.
I see some questions already popping up on the screen. There was a great question about why chameleons move so slow. I'm going to get to that a little bit later. That's actually very topical, and I'm really glad that you asked that. That's going to be a part of the first myth that we're going to cover.
However, you don't need fancy videos to make a splash on social media. During the UK lockdown, Yorkshire Museum ran a weekly challenge to other museums with the hashtag Curator Battle. They picked a theme, in this case hashtag Best Dog, then put up an image from their own collection, challenging others to post better examples. It quickly went viral and generously allowed lots of other museums to reach a wider audience than they might otherwise have done. I guess, however, that many of you want to create some kind of online exhibition, either on your own website or hosted on another platform. So in the rest of this talk, I'm going to show you some examples of different formats you might want to think about. The best one for you depends on the kind of stories you want to tell, and you can always combine different presentation types. The examples I'm going to show were all created by smaller museums with free or cheap technical solutions. I hope they give you some ideas for your online projects. As you know from your real-world exhibition galleries, timelines can be a really effective way of structuring a chronological story. Here's an example from the Museum of British Surfing. Yes, there is one, even if our waves can't compete with yours. The museum website was created in WordPress, a widely used web content management system. As with many similar systems, you can extend the basic functionality using a wide range of plugins developed by third parties. In this case, the Surfing Museum used the plugin WP Timeline, which costs just $25 for non-commercial use, probably by getting their regular web developer to add it to their basic WordPress site. In this case, they've chosen to go with a vertical timeline, but they could equally have gone horizontal instead. As you scroll down the page, you get some interesting images and short text. Sometimes there's some additional text. Overall, it looks good and it tells an interesting story. If you use a different site building tool than WordPress, it may have a timeline template built in, or you might be able to get them as plugins. Another way of building a good-looking timeline for free is to use this tool, Timeline.js, the JavaScript. Here's a simple example I made using it. You need a Google account, and you simply make a copy of their Google Sheets template. Enter the text you want to appear in the timeline, paste the URLs of the images or other media, such as videos, you want to use. So your images do have to live somewhere online, either uploaded to the media library of your own website or perhaps to a third-party platform, such as Flickr or Wikimedia. When you've entered your timeline content into the Google Sheets template, you simply publish it to the web. There are some formatting options at this stage, and then you paste the resulting embed code into your own website. Maps, of course, are another tried and tested way of structuring stories about museum collections. And the same people behind the timeline tool I just showed also have a free map creating tool called StoryMap.js. Here's how Liverpool Museum used it to create an online tour of the city buildings that have decorative tiles. Even simpler is to use a platform such as HistoryPin to create tours such as this one by Reading Museum. It's a guide to the town's lost pubs. Users can explore your content on the HistoryPin site, and you can also embed your tours into your own website. That last example included a slideshow, one of two main ways of showing a large number of images in a structured way. Here's another example of a slideshow with images and some caption text. And here are the same images presented as a grid-like album, which is easier to browse through, but not, in my opinion, quite as engaging as the slideshow version. As with timelines, if you use a generic site building tool for your museum website, it will almost certainly have templates either built in or available as plugins to display groups of images as albums or slideshows. For example, here is an album created by the Migration Museum using a plugin for their WordPress website. You can click on an image to see a full-sized version with more detailed caption text. If you can't do something like this on your own website, you could always use a platform such as Flickr, as Bury Museum has done in this example here. And once you've uploaded content to Flickr, you can get some embed code and paste that back into a basic web page to liven it up a bit. All the examples I've shown so far have been quite serious, but there's no reason why you can't have a bit of fun.
Lord Dalkeith has been dead of the smallpox for just 3 days. It is so dreadful in his family. His eldest boy died of it last year, and his only brother, who was ill but 2 days, putrefied so fast that his limbs fell off as they lifted him into the coffin. There are several online quiz generating websites that you could use to create an interactive quiz using images of your collections. But remember, not all your users will be able to see the image, so make sure non-sighted users can play the quiz too by asking a relevant general knowledge question, not just, "What is this?" During the COVID-19 lockdown, quite a few museums have been turning images of their collections into jigsaws, including, I see, Musée de Caux. As with making quizzes, there are various free websites you can use to create this kind of jigsaw and embed it on your own website, as Brooklands Museum has done here. More ambitiously, and with some external project funding, some museums in Scotland have been digitally recreated in the popular Minecraft video game. So that last Minecraft example takes us nicely to the kind of online exhibition that tries to replicate or recreate the experience of visiting a real museum. Here's an example from the National Brewery Centre, and what they've done is to use the Google Tour Creator tool, and then they've loaded up some 360-degree photographs of the museum and then added a few hotspot annotations like this. It's a little bit clunky, but on the other hand, it's free and it's relatively easy as a tool to create a basic tour. Taking a different approach, there are various platforms that allow you to build a virtual reality environment and then drop your own content in to create quite a realistic looking online exhibition which a user can walk through. This particular one uses a platform called Art Steps, which is actually free for non-commercial use. And you can see somebody has loaded this up with a photographic exhibition. Again, it's a little bit basic, but it's free. A more sophisticated approach than either the very basic Google Tour Creator or an artificial virtual reality environment like Art Steps is to use a platform such as Matterport, which combines photography with virtual reality modeling to create a photorealistic virtual environment that your online visitors can explore. I'm going to show you a really good example from the National Paralympic Heritage Centre at Stoke Mandeville. As you can imagine, this organisation takes accessibility very seriously, and it's well worth studying this as an example.
Professor Sir Ludwig Guttmann was born in 1899 in Breslau, Germany, now Wrocław in Poland. After studying medicine at Breslau University, he became assistant to Europe's then leading neurologist, Professor Ottfried Forster, at the city's hospital.
2 photographs of Guttmann.
But in 1933, the Nazis forced all Jews to leave so-called Aryan hospitals. Dr. Guttmann joined the Jewish hospital in Breslau as neurologist and was elected medical director in 1937.
Matterport and similar platforms use really sophisticated software to create very complex three-dimensional models. But the kit used to capture the data can be as simple as a smartphone. And the same is true of creating 3D versions of your objects. So here's an example created by the Science Museum in a studio. But many smaller museums are using
smartphones and simple apps to create three-dimensional versions of their own collections and then posting them on platforms like Sketchfab, which is really the YouTube for 3D models. And here's an example posted by Spellform Museum, which is run by volunteers, and no doubt this was created with minimal kit on an absolute shoestring budget. And just like many of the other things I've shown you in this talk, you can of course embed the results into your own website or social media posts just by copying and pasting the embed code. So whatever kind of collections, resources you have available, I hope that these suggestions have given you some ideas for things that you could do at your museum. If you want to look up further information about any of these, just go to the Collections Trust website, and if you click Collections on Display, you can find links to many of the things that I've been talking about, and some others as well, on that website. So you just click and you can find many of the examples that I've talked about. So I hope you found this useful, and I hope we'll meet again in real life very soon.